Hello, and welcome to Hobbit Hot Takes, a queer reread of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. My name is Iris. If you can't pronounce that, you can call me Iris, and I use they them pronouns. This is an introductory video where I'm going to tell you a little bit about this project and a little bit about myself. I'm quite sure that almost everyone who rereads The Lord of the Rings regularly has thought about documenting their reread at some point. I'm making this assumption based on the fact that I have thought about starting a blog about it several times. Well, I haven't until now. How this project, Hobbit Hot Takes, came about is actually, it started as videos on TikTok, but TikTok's 1 minute limit is quite limiting. I've been making these 1 minute videos about mostly hobbits and mostly queerness, and I realized that I want to expand this. In the past year and a bit, I've been listening to Lord of the Rings audiobooks almost constantly. And when I say audiobooks plural, I mean that I've listened to at least 3 different versions. I think in 2020 I listened to the whole book at least 3 times, and then various bits I've listened to more than that. And from this intense re-listening, I've had a lot of thoughts, and I've written a lot of them down in notebooks or made voice memos on my phone or sometimes made TikToks about it. So I have a lot of material already that I know I want to cover and expand. But I'm sure there will also be new things that jump up at me, and that I will have new thoughts about things I've thought of before. So, what to expect from this series? Each episode will be about 1 chapter. I think I'll provide a brief summary of what happens in that chapter, and then I'll discuss the various points and thoughts I have about that chapter. Some of them will be more tied to the specific events of that chapter, or quite possibly a specific turn of phrase or something small like that. And some of them will be more about overarching themes that I think that chapter is a good place to talk about. You should definitely expect queer interpretations, headcanons, and hot takes. If the name of the series wasn't a clue, there will be a big focus on the hobbits. I will definitely be telling you which parts make me cry, and my favorite parts in general. And I can guarantee that I will be talking about how the word queer is used. I will probably mention it almost every time it's used. Some tidbits I can give you right now. Merry has daddy issues. Eowyn is a queer character. Why Gandalf is the fairy godmother of queer hobbits. How Aragorn, Frodo, and Sam compare as heroes. And on the whole, my reading is going to be a queer reading. So first of all, if that's not your thing, you are free to leave. And secondly, while I will be discussing many things related to queerness and how I see queerness in the novel, I will also be talking about things that are not explicitly queer or exclusively queer, because it all ties in with my reading as a whole. And also because I'm a nerd and there are so many things that just interest me. On the other hand, I will not be making it a point to talk about everything. Because first of all, that would be signing myself up for a huge amount of work. And secondly, because there are so many resources about The Lord of the Rings. There are many blogs, podcasts, videos, what have you, that are more focused on a general interpretation or a biographic interpretation, or there's just so much out there that I don't need to do that work. And I will not necessarily be talking about everything that someone might see as queer in these novels. I'm not trying to present the definitive queer reading of The Lord of the Rings. I'm presenting a queer reading and basically talking about what interests me personally. I expect there will also be some discussion about class, race, and sexism to the extent that I feel capable of discussing those things. To introduce myself a little bit, I'm 31 years old. I identify as queer and non-binary. I live in Finland. I'm a translator and would-be writer. I have an MA in translation studies recently. Yay! My hobbies include drag, even though for obvious reasons I haven't been able to perform for a while. Knitting and crochet and digging about in the forest. I'm a cat person, but I don't have a cat at the moment. You can imagine the tragedy. The Lord of the Rings has been one of my favorite books for a very long time. For 20 years. I first read it when I was 11. I had read The Hobbit before. Actually, I think originally my dad read it to me and my brother as a bedtime story, and then later I read it on my own. I was a big reader as a child. It was my favorite thing to do at any given time. And I tried to read The Lord of the Rings when I was about 10, but I guess the prose was a bit too hard for me to follow because I remember that I gave up at the chapter Flight to the Ford at the end of book 1 because I had no idea what was going on. Which was quite a disappointment because so much of my identity was based on being a reader and reading above my age level and never leaving a book unfinished. But then in early 2001, when I was around 11, I heard that there was going to be a movie trilogy, and because of the kind of person that I was, I had to read the books before seeing the movies. So I made a very careful plan that I would read each book, each part of the trilogy that is in the year coming up to the release of the movie. Because if you recall, the movies came out a year apart each in December of 2001, 2002, and 2003. Great plan. Failed immediately. I started reading on a Friday after school, and I read through the whole weekend. And on Monday morning before school, I was desperately trying to get through the last chapters. You know, standing with my brick of a hardcover in minus 20 degrees in the schoolyard. I don't think I finished before school. I think I had some very frustrating lessons where I was just waiting to get to break and get back to my book. I think I finished before lunch though. I also read The Silmarillion, I think the same year, but I have to say I only got through it on sheer willpower, and I don't imagine I retained much. I think it was just too difficult for me to follow, but I was adamant that I was going to finish it because otherwise how else could I be a Lord of the Rings fan? And I haven't read The Silmarillion since. I've listened to parts of it as an audiobook, but I think I'll have to go back to a physical copy if I want to reread it. Of course, I've absorbed a lot of the contents and events from other sources, so I'm somewhat familiar. But yeah, since that first time, I've been rereading The Lord of the Rings every year or every few years. And a couple of years ago, I discovered audiobooks, and I particularly like to listen to audiobooks of books that I've read before, and particularly my old fantasy favorites. So I have a rotation of a number of books and book series that I listen to, and I go through it every couple of years. That's just enough not to get too familiar and get bored with them. But like I said, last year I started listening to The Lord of the Rings constantly. It's become my comfort media. And even though I've been rereading it semi-regularly through the years, I'm definitely going through a renaissance of my intense obsession with it from my preteens and early teenage years. Yeah, I'm really hoping that I don't get bored. And also, right now, for this project, I'm actually rereading The Lord of the Rings as a physical book in English for the first time. Because previously I've had the physical copy in Finnish that I would reread. And then I started listening to the English audiobooks, but I haven't actually owned an English copy of the book until now. That's all I can think of for now. Join me next time when I start the actual read through with the prologue. If you have any feedback, I would be very grateful. Or just any thoughts or comments, your personal experiences with The Lord of the Rings. I'm also fairly new to making videos like this, so if you have any feedback on technical aspects, those are very welcome as well. So yeah, the comments are open. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a bit. This has been Hobbit Hot Takes.